Are you still waiting for someone who will never come back? Do you wonder why this person no longer seeks you out, despite everything you experienced together? In this video, we look at what really happens from the perspective of Jungian psychology when you cling to someone who has long gone. I talk about emotional projections, unconscious bonds, the archetype of the idealized image of love, and how all of this sabotages your healing process. This is not a video trying to convince you to let go. It is a mirror so that you may recognize yourself. If you have ever felt broken inside, this video will not leave you untouched. Watch it until the end. The answer you are looking for lies in your shadow. There is something more painful than being left. And it is not the farewell itself, it is the silence afterwards. That silence that does not announce itself, that does not explain itself. A silence that screams louder than any goodbye. Because if at least someone tells you they are leaving, something within you can prepare for the end. But if they simply stop seeking you, if their presence disappears as if it never meant anything, your soul breaks into invisible pieces, and you ask yourself, why? Why if I gave everything? Why if I was there in their darkest moments? Why if I tore myself apart just so they would be okay? And the cruelest question of all, why am I still waiting for them if they will never come back? Grief without answers is the longest, and often it is not the absence of the other that hurts. What truly hurts is what their absence triggers within you. That abandoned place in you, that old wound, that emotional echo that connects with your past. Most people who wait for someone who has long gone are not waiting for that real person. They are waiting for what that person once meant to them. They are waiting for an idealized version that never existed outside their own mind. And this is where one of Carl Jung's most powerful concepts comes into play: projection. When you fall in love, you rarely fall in love with the person as they truly are. You fall in love with what you see in them. And what you see is often not real. It is your unconscious speaking to you. It is your anima or animus that you project onto the other. It is your image of love, your soul image, your wounds that want to be healed from the outside. Do you realize it? You are not waiting for that person. You are waiting for the part of yourself you placed in them to come back. And that will never happen. And now comes the hardest part. Sometimes that person does not reach out because you triggered something in them for which they were not ready. Maybe you were too honest, too real, too emotional, too much of a mirror. Because few people know, when you become a mirror, you force the other to see themselves. And many people cannot bear what they see. Not because you did something wrong, but because you showed them their own wound, their fear of abandonment, their inability to love, their self-deception, their inner fracture. And when someone is not ready to heal, they flee from the one who reminds them of it. This is what Jung calls the process of individuation, the path inward towards one's own shadow, towards what we have repressed all our life. And you, without wanting to, triggered this path in the other person, and because they were not yet ready, they left you. Do you understand now? It was not a lack of love, it was escape. It was not rejection, it was fear. And while you are still waiting, this person is running away. Not because you were too much or too little, but because you touched something they did not even know existed. You touched their shadow. And in the moment when someone touches our shadow, there are two reactions. We face it, or we run away. Many run away, and you keep asking yourself, why don't they come back? Because they can't. Because they do not know how to deal with what you activated in them. Because they do not understand why they felt so seen, so vulnerable, so exposed with you. Because maybe for the first time, they saw themselves in you, and that was more terrifying than being without you. That is why they do not seek you. You were not a comfortable fantasy. You were a wake-up call, and no one wants to wake up as long as they still want to dream. I am not telling you this so that you keep waiting. Quite the opposite. I am telling you so that you understand. Their silence does not determine your worth, and what you felt was real. But what you expect is an illusion. You do not need them to come back. You need to come back to yourself, to the place within you where you lost yourself, trying to be enough for someone who does not even know themselves yet. Because when you idealize someone, you lose your power. And when you wake up, you take it back. And today this is your first sign, not to close your heart, but to open it in a new direction, because you were not too much. You were exactly right. Only they were not strong enough yet to bear it. Remember this, they did not leave you because of who you are, but because of what you triggered in them. And that is not a reason to dim your light, but a call to raise your consciousness. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel and share it with others. Perhaps somewhere there is someone waiting to understand why they are no longer being sought. And maybe this is exactly the answer they are looking for. It may hurt you to hear this, but it is necessary. What you called love was often not love. It was neediness, lack, disguised as romance. It was an image you created in your mind and projected onto someone you hardly knew in reality. And that is not your fault. We all do this. You did it. And so did the other person. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two people is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is a reaction, both are transformed." But what many do not understand is that this transformation is not always mutual and certainly not always balanced. Sometimes one changes, and the other breaks or leaves. You didn't fall in love with this person, you fell in love with what they embodied for you. With the archetype they activated within you. Maybe it was the savior, maybe the protector, maybe the figure who gave you the validation you never received in childhood, or the reflection of your own abandonment. This is how the unconscious works. It doesn't choose who is good for you, it chooses who embodies your wound. And that's why you still think about this person, even though they hurt you, because you don't miss them. You miss what they triggered in you. Projection is an unconscious mechanism by which we transfer everything we don't want to see or accept in ourselves onto others. This includes not only our shadows, but also our strengths, our desires, but also our fears, and above all, our expectations of salvation. You didn't love this person. You loved how they made you feel, the role they played in your inner world, but did you really know them, their fears, their insecurities, their true limits? Or did you only see what you wanted to see? Jung spoke of the anima and animus, the inner archetypes of the feminine and masculine within each of us. When we meet someone who matches our inner projection, we believe we've found our soulmate, but in reality, we've only found a recipient of our fantasy. And this is doomed to fail, because no one can carry the image you place on them forever. That's why they left. That's why they changed. That's why they no longer seek you. Not because they didn't care about you, but because your idealization suffocated them. No one can live long in someone else's projection without breaking or fleeing, and you also can't wait forever for an illusion that was never real. It was a mirror of your unresolved emotional needs. Does it hurt? Yes, deeply. Because when a projection shatters, you don't just lose the person, you lose a part of yourself. The illusion, the story you wanted to tell yourself. But here is the most important thing. This separation is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of your true individuation. The way back to yourself, to who you are without losing yourself in others, to your true self, naked, honest, without fantasies, and without wounds that guide you. You don't need a person who fits your inner lack. You need to become someone who no longer leaves themselves just to fill the emptiness of others. Because if you're still waiting, you're not waiting for them, you're waiting for the feeling your projection gave you. But that feeling didn't come from them. It came from within you, and you can give it back to yourself without anyone returning. Love is not worship. It is not total devotion where you forget yourself. True love arises when you are complete, and you choose to share this fullness with someone, not to be saved, not to feel worthy, but to grow together, from reality, not from illusion. Maybe today you still can't stop thinking about this person, but there will come a day when you see clearly. It wasn't him. It wasn't her. It was your mirror. And when you let go of that mirror, you will see yourself and understand it wasn't love, it was a reflection, and you don't need that anymore. Don't close this chapter with anger, but with gratitude, because what you experienced was painful, yes, but it was a lesson. And every lesson that brings you back to yourself is worth more than 1,000 broken promises. Your story doesn't end with the one who left. It begins with the one who returns, yourself. If you're crying today over someone who won't come back, remember this: you don't need them to come back. You need to wake up. And that begins now. People don't break us. They show us where we were already broken. The good news is, now that you know, you can begin to rebuild yourself from a real place, a place that truly belongs to you. If you like this video, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with just one word: I wake up. By doing so, you give your subconscious the sign that something has changed, and you help others feel less alone on this path. It is hard to accept, but often what we call love is nothing more than a hidden desire for control. You believe you're protecting him, that you love him with all your heart, that you give without asking, that you completely surrender yourself. But deep inside there is a hidden thought: if I am good enough, he won't leave me. If I love him so much, he will stay. If I help him heal, he will choose me. And that's where self-deception begins, because you don't love from freedom, you love from fear. And love born from fear always ends in constriction. The other feels it, even if you never say it. They feel your fear of being abandoned, your longing for validation. And even if they can't put it into words, their body feels it, and they begin to withdraw. Not out of cruelty, not out of lack of love, but because no one can bear the responsibility of being the center of your emotional stability. If you love hoping that the other will complete you, you lose your balance. And although you call it love, you're actually seeking security, certainty, identity. You give the other a burden that is not theirs, to make you feel worthy of existing. And I do not judge you. We all do this. From childhood, we learned that love has conditions. If I am good, Mum loves me. If I try hard, Dad sees me. If I am perfect, they won't leave me. And so we grow up with this pattern: love to not be abandoned, not to show ourselves, but to hold on, to never feel that emptiness again that once broke us. But that is not love, it is unresolved trauma. Carl Jung said, "He who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakens." As long as you seek outside for someone to complete you, you will dream, hope, project. But if you dare to look within and recognize where your lack comes from, then your awakening begins. An awakening is not beautiful, it hurts. It forces you to let go of the illusion that someone else will save you. When that person left and didn't come back, they didn't do it because you weren't enough, but because you unconsciously put them on a pedestal. And pedestals are cages. Pedestals suffocate. Pedestals are not love. They are idealizations that no one can carry for long. Emotional freedom begins when you no longer need to control the other to feel inner peace, when you no longer need them to feel safe, when you no longer need to test if they will stay, when you no longer love to avoid abandonment, but because you no longer abandon yourself. You wanted to protect him, but you also wanted him to stay. You wanted to help him heal, but also for him to choose you, and that's okay. It is human. But if you're not aware of it, you will repeat it. And the worst part is you will keep waiting. Not because he is the right person, but because you haven't healed the wound that idealized him. A healthy relationship is not about how much you give, but how much you give to yourself while giving. Because if you give everything and lose yourself in the process, you are not loving, you are bargaining, you are unconsciously saying, "I give you everything I am, but please stay." And that is emotional manipulation. Gentle, unconscious, but real. That's why I tell you, love is not a mechanism of control. Love does not need proofs, conditions, constant reassurance. True love sets free. And if you were the person who gave too much, who lost yourself to save the other, then maybe you weren't a partner but a therapist, a savior, an idealized version of yourself who believed that in this way you would finally be loved. But that exhausts, that overwhelms, and eventually the other notices and leaves, not out of malice but out of instinct. You were not left because you gave too much. You were left because you gave out of fear. And fear, even disguised as love, always repels. The most painful part is that you thought you were doing everything right, and you gave your best, but not from the right source, not from awareness, not from whole love, but from your old wound. And now that you know it, you can do it differently. You can begin to love yourself, to hold yourself, to save yourself, and to stop controlling others with your fear, even if it comes from the best intentions. If you like this video, leave a comment saying, "I no longer love out of fear." This is a promise to yourself, a small act of awareness that can forever change how you live relationships. It is hard to accept, but often what we call love is nothing more than a hidden desire to control. You think you are protecting him, that you love him with all your heart, that you give without expecting anything in return, that you surrender completely. But deep inside you there is a hidden intention. If I am enough, he won't leave me. If I love him so much, he will stay. If I help him heal, he will choose me. And that is where self-deception begins, because you are not loving from freedom, you are loving from fear. And love that is born from fear always ends in constriction. The other person feels it, even if you never say it, even if you don't notice it yourself. He feels your need to be validated, to be accepted, to not be abandoned. And even if his mind doesn't understand it, his body senses it and begins to withdraw, not out of cruelty, not out of lack of love, but because no one can bear the responsibility of being the center of your emotional stability. If you love in the hope that the other person will complete you, balance is lost. And even if you call it love, in truth, you are seeking safety, certainty, identity. You place a burden on the other person that isn't theirs to make you feel worthy. And I do not judge you. We all do this. As children, we learn to attach out of need. If I am good, Mum loves me. If I try hard, Dad sees me. If I am perfect, I won't be abandoned. And so we grow up with this pattern, loving to not be left. We do not love to share ourselves. We love to hold on. We love to never again feel that pain that once broke us. That is not love. That is unresolved trauma. Carl Jung explained it like this: he who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakens. As long as you seek outside for someone to complete you, you will keep dreaming, projecting, hoping. But if you dare to look within and recognize where this need comes from, you begin to awaken. And awakening is not beautiful. Awakening hurts, because it forces you to let go of the illusion that someone else will save you. When this person left and did not return, they did not do it because you weren't worthy. They did it because, without knowing it, you placed them on a pedestal. And pedestals tire. Pedestals crush. Pedestals are cages disguised as admiration. Emotional freedom can only arise when you no longer need to control the other person to feel inner peace. When you no longer need them to reply immediately, to tell you what you want to hear, to match the script in your mind. When you stop loving to avoid abandonment and start loving because you no longer abandon yourself, you wanted to protect this person. But in truth, you also wanted them to stay. You wanted to help them heal, but also for them to stay with you. And that is okay. It is human. But if you are not aware of this, you will repeat it. And the worst part is, you will keep waiting for them to come back. Not because they are the right person, but because you have not yet healed the wound that led you to idealize them. A relationship is not based on how much you give, but on how much you give to yourself while giving. Because if you give everything and empty yourself in the process, you are not loving, you are bargaining. Unconsciously, you are saying, I give you everything I am, but please stay. And this is a form of emotional manipulation. Silent, innocent, but real. That is why I tell you, love is not control. Love does not need to hold on. Love does not require constant proofs of loyalty or commitment. True love frees, and if you were someone who gave too much, who surrendered yourself completely, who tried to save the other person from themselves, then maybe you were not a partner, but a therapist. Maybe you were a savior. Maybe you were a perfected version of yourself, believing that in this way you would never be rejected again. But that tires, that exhausts, and eventually the other person feels it and flees, not out of malice, but out of instinct. You were not rejected because you gave too much. You were left because you were giving from a place that was not love, but fear. And fear, even when disguised as love, always repels. The hardest part is that you felt you were doing the right thing. And you were, but not from the right place, not from awareness, not from complete love, but from your wound. And now that you know this, you can do it differently. You can begin to love yourself first, to hold yourself, and to stop controlling, even with the best intentions. If you like this video, leave a comment saying, I no longer love out of fear. This is a promise to yourself, a small, conscious act that can forever change the way you love. You say you miss him, that you can't stop thinking about him, that you wake up with a knot in your heart, wondering why he didn't come back, why he doesn't write to you, why he was able to forget you so easily. But if you really pause, take a deep breath, and observe yourself honestly, you might discover something completely different. You do not miss him. You miss who you were when you were with him. You miss the version of yourself that felt more complete, more seen, more significant. You miss how he activated in you the feeling of being special. And when he left, you didn't just lose a person. You lost an emotional state, a validation, an inner place. Because there is an uncomfortable truth that many do not want to see. You are not waiting for him to come back. You are waiting to feel like yourself again. And you believe that is only possible if he returns. But that is a trap of the ego. The ego does not want to heal, it wants to be right. The ego says, if he comes back, then I was worthy. If he comes back, then I wasn't wrong. If he comes back, then I was enough. You are not waiting for love. You are waiting for emotional rehabilitation. Jung explained it like this. The ego fears its own disappearance. It fears the collapse of its identity. And when someone leaves without giving you explanations, without closing the circle, without acknowledging what you gave, the ego panics. And that is why it clings, why you become obsessed, why you repeat scenes in your mind, because you cannot accept that this story remained open. But you know what? The soul does not need the story to end the way you imagined. The soul only needs you to awaken. And awakening does not always come with answers. It comes with awareness. What really hurts you is not that he left. It is that his departure left you naked in front of your own inner lack. And now you believe no one will ever fill it again. But you do not see that lack was not caused by him. It was there before. He only made it visible, only touched it, only activated it. And that was the most valuable thing he could do for you. Because sometimes the person who hurts you the most is your greatest teacher, disguised as an enemy, the one who, without knowing it, forces you to look within, to rebuild yourself, to stop begging for love in the name of romance. I know it is hard to accept that the pain is real, that the nights are heavy, that you still wonder if you mattered to him, if he thinks of you, if he regrets it. And maybe yes, maybe somewhere he thinks of you, but not enough to come back. Not with the clarity you wish for, not with the intensity with which you still expect him. And that hurts, but it also frees you, because it gives you your power back, because you do not need him. What you need is not this person's return. You need to say goodbye to the illusion that only through him you were yourself. Because this is not love, this is emotional dependency. And the soul is not built through dependency, but through solitude, through the fall, through that brutal moment when you realize that no one is coming to save you. And it is exactly there that your freedom begins. When you stop waiting for him to come back, a new kind of love arises, self-love, one that does not negotiate its worth, that does not beg, that does not need messages, signs, excuses, or explanations. It remains silent, dignified, true, and from there you can begin to let go. Not because you stopped loving, but because you started loving yourself more. You don't miss him, you miss what you believed you were when he looked at you, but you are still here. You are more than a version reflected in someone else's eyes. You don't need him to come back. You need to come back to yourself, to your center, to your truth. If you like this video, leave a comment saying, "I return to myself." Because more than another's return, your soul needs your own return. Do you know what one of the deepest pains a human can feel is? To feel invisible, to feel that someone who once knew you, who once saw you, who touched your soul, now acts as if you don't exist, as if you never meant anything, as if your love were disposable. And you, even if you don't say it, even if you smile in front of others, carry this open wound, one that is not visible but bleeds every time he doesn't reply. When you see he posts something but doesn't think of you, when another day passes without a sign. But what hurts the most is not his absence. It's what his silence triggers within you, the unconscious belief that you are not worth being remembered, you are not suffering only because of him, you are reliving all the times in your life when you were ignored, rejected, or overlooked. Perhaps by your parents, by authority figures, by someone who should have protected you and couldn't. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This abandonment pattern is not a curse. It is an old wound that wants to be seen. A part of you still believes you are not good enough to be chosen. And that is why the pain is so overwhelming when someone leaves without a word. Because you are not just reacting to his leaving, but to an entire unresolved story. And I understand that. It is cruel, it is destructive, it feels as if a part of you dies with that indifference. But here is the key. It is not he who makes you feel invisible. It is your wound projecting onto his silence the confirmation of your deepest fear. And when you identify with this wound, you start living your life trying to fix it. You think about how to win him back. You wonder what you did wrong. You start bending yourself, adapting, minimizing yourself, not because you are fighting for love, but for recognition. You hope that someone who left will give you back something you forgot to give yourself, worth. And do you know what is the saddest part? The more you try to be seen by him, the more invisible you become to yourself. It's like standing in front of a broken mirror and trying to rebuild yourself with the shards he left behind. But you can't complete yourself with what's left of someone who chose to no longer look at you. Rejection, when not understood, becomes obsession. And in this obsession, you lose yourself. You no longer know what you like. You no longer remember who you were before you met him. Everything revolves around what he thinks, what he does, what he doesn't say. And that is dangerous, because you lose your center, you lose your power, you become the shadow of someone who is no longer there. Jung said that the shadow contains everything we do not want to be, but are. And in your shadow live all these sentences you would never say out loud. I am not enough. No one stays. They always leave me. I am only worthy if I am chosen. And as long as these sentences govern your life, you will remain bound to rejection, waiting for someone to come to disprove them, to validate you, to tell you that you are worthy. But the truth is, no one can do that for you. No one, not even the person you are crying over today. Because even if he came back, you would feel insecure again, you would doubt again, you would need signs again to feel loved. Because the problem is not in his leaving, it is in the story you wrote about yourself after he left. You are not invisible. It is your pain that blinds you. It is your ego, your wound, your untold story that tells you that you are worthless. But your soul knows better. Your soul knows that this wound did not come to destroy you. It came to wake you up, to show you where you still do not love yourself, where you still depend on another to feel alive. And when you realize this, everything changes. You no longer need his return. nor signs, nor an "I miss you," because you have yourself. And that, as painful as it is at first, is true freedom. You are not broken. You are just still carrying the echo of an old wound that you no longer need to feed. Rejection does not define your worth. It only shows where you have not yet recognized yourself. If you like this video, leave a comment saying, "I am not invisible." Because sometimes writing it down is the first step to remembering. And whoever remembers, they are worthy no longer crawls for love. If you tell yourself only one thing today, let it be this: I choose myself and I no longer place my worth in other people's hands. Because your existence does not need anyone's approval, you no longer need to prove that you deserve to be loved. Your breath, your feelings, your tears, and your strength, all these parts already make you a whole human being. Whoever recognizes your worth will not ask you to prove it. And when you start looking at yourself through the eyes of dignity rather than lack, you will stop seeking salvation where only absence was offered to you. So do not end this story as a victim, but as a being who has awakened, not as someone who was left behind, but as someone who finally found the way home to themselves. This is not an end. It is the beginning of something you will never again need to seek outside. Recognition, peace, love, because now you know everything you were looking for was always within you. You just needed to see yourself again. And now that you do, never settle for less again.